All right. So this is a special week because this week we are honoring the leaders of the recovery movement. And while I can't interview everybody, I've really been privileged to be able to interview some wonderful men who have been walking this path a long time, and that I've had the privilege of being able to know for quite some time. And my next guest is Phil Valentine, who's the executive director of CCAR. And I'll let you tell him, I'll let him share a little bit more about that. But I've known Phil for almost 20 years now. I first met him at an event when Recovery Month was, was a couple of events around the country. And when recovery advocacy was, 12 organizations around the country. So to think about how this has grown and changed, and what an amazing catalyst you have been for that, has just been so cool to see, and it's got to be gratifying to see Recovery Month internationally recognized, and the events that happen, the real impact that has on healing this illness in our society. So Phil Valentine, welcome so much.
Hey, I'm always glad to do this for you, Dan. This is kind of cool. Let's use the internet. You're like in California, I'm in Connecticut.
I know, I love it.
Yeah.
So start every conversation the exact same way, and that is, what's the greatest gift that recovery has given you toward being the man you always knew you could be?
Wow. I mean, such a simple little question, Dan, but coming from you, I should expect no less.
Yeah.
So what has recovery meant to me? Let me kind of break it into two parts. What has recovery meant to me? And I think first and foremost, it's given me the ability to reestablish or establish meaningful relationships. First and foremost, with a God of my understanding. Second, with my family. Third, with work and colleagues. And fourth, with kind of the community around me. And so as a man, I always thought of myself as a leader, especially growing up as a kid. I mean, whether I was organizing kickball games or later on in college, organizing keg parties. I mean, I was always organizing something, and people were following me. And I knew I was leading them down a wrong path then. And now I'm hopefully leading people to a path of redemption, a path of meaningful, or having a meaningful purpose in one's own life. I just get so juiced and excited to see people discover their purpose in life and then follow through. And the only way that was possible for me was to put down the alcohol and the drugs and pursue a life of recovery. Being a man and leadership, sometimes leadership is seen as like a four-letter word almost. And I think when we're called to lead, we have an obligation to lead. Not that everybody's a leader, not that everybody has to be a leader, but you can be a leader in your own life and make it self-directed. Or in my case, I really try to align my direction, my actions, my calls in life with what I believe God has called me to do. My purpose in life was, or has been for I've been in recovery 28 years now. My purpose, I discovered about 5 years into recovery, was to carry the message of recovery. And last year, we were talking a little bit before we got on camera about that last year I was on the Appalachian Trail. And I think my purpose even got defined even more, refined, if you will, to my purpose is to coach recovery. And I feel that's my calling in my life.
Well, you've been an amazing leader. You, I think, have exuded, what we consider maybe sometimes traditional masculine qualities. Leadership would definitely be one of those. But you've done it in a way that is reflective of, I think, the more 21st century masculinity, which is it's relational, it's about connection, it's about vulnerability. What's powerful about what you do as a servant leader, which is what I hear you saying,
Mm-hmm.
is that while you may be helping other people in their redemption personally, the fact that you've created a platform for the world to better understand that process of redemption for individuals like myself and yourself and so many others, that's what's been so missing. You know, it's one thing to go through that process of redemption and to be within ourselves. We know how our lives have been transformed. We know how we are different people, different men. We show up differently. It's a completely other thing to educate the larger society that's still immersed in its own experiences with addiction. So many people are still just in pain about the suffering, their own suffering or somebody else's, and cutting through all that and trying to send this powerful message. I mean, I remember CCAR has always been the leader in these Recovery Month events with the walk and with the first time thousands of people have showed up. And the idea that created for all of us around the country, that this was real, man. Like this really could happen, that people would resonate with this, and that being open and doing that which so many of us do in meetings in church basements all the time, by bringing it out, not hiding our light under the bushel, as Johnny Allen says, yeah. That could really make a difference. And as a man, I've heard you talk about the importance of your family. I've heard you talk about the importance of this work. How do you balance leadership in the family, leadership in society, and then leadership as God directed?
I think they're all very much interrelated because for me, another gift of recovery is to become comfortable in my own skin. And it's another way of saying that is letting the inside match the outside. So simply put, it's basically what you see is what you get. So I think I'm the same, try to conduct myself the same way, whether I'm at work, whether I'm on the sidelines of one of my kids' sporting events or other events. I'm interacting with my wife and family. Whether I'm in church or in AA meetings, I just try to really let the gratitude show, because if I'm grateful, I'm joyful. And if I'm full of joy, then people are attracted to that. And it's genuine. So that's just a way for me to build relationships, is just to be myself. I like what you said about vulnerability. I believe now that there's great power in vulnerability. I'm not fearful to show who I am or where my weaknesses are or what I'm struggling with today, because that's also who I am. I don't have to hide those aspects of me. I also think my sponsor talked to me a lot about how you know you're in longer term recovery. And he talked a lot about always there's an increase in integrity and morality. And he believed that as it doesn't make any sense to have 25 years in recovery and be an immoral person. That's always rung true for me, whether it's, trying to fudge something on an expense report or taxes or taking a paper clip from work or, I just don't do those things, because it's not about whether I can get away with them or not. It's about what it does to me inside, about my own personal integrity, my own honesty. And I've come to realize that I want to lead right, RIGHT. And I just discovered this recently, and it's an acronym. So I want to lead right. I want to lead with respect for others, with integrity, with gratitude is the G, with H is with honesty, and T is transparency. That's how I lead right. And I really believe that about organization. And I think we have success with our state because we conduct our organization right. They understand where we're coming from. We're transparent is a big thing, and we're honest. And so I don't know, that kind of rabbit trail. I'm sorry, but
no,
that's kind of where I was led. That I just feel like you have to conduct myself right.
That was beautiful. I mean, like that, I think that speaks to a framework and having a framework for leadership. I mean, just because somebody feels compelled to lead doesn't mean that self-centeredness and narcissism won't take us down a path, that's really detrimental and in some ways can embody the most toxic forms of masculinity. So before
I have a few people in my life that are always checking my ego, and that's good too.
Which we need. You can't put yourself out there as a leader in the recovery movement or as a leader in anything related to recovery if you don't have people who don't care. They care about you enough to not care about what you do and who we think we are out there.
Right.
That they hold us to that greater ideal of integrity. So before we go, I would love for you to talk a little bit about your trip last year. I know it's going to be a book, and I know it could be a whole 2-hour conversation, which, I think would be a wonderful thing, quite honestly. But in many ways, it seems to me that, we talk so often about the hero's journey. And as I think about it, and as I think about what that must have been like for you, and I think about my own fear that comes up as I think of doing that, and the excitement and the amazement and wonder and all of the emotion that could come with that every day. It really seems like it was that classic hero's journey of self. You did a lot of it with your son too, though, right?
My daughter and my son.
Your daughter and your son. So
different times.
Yeah. So, I mean, so much about this. I'm so excited to read about it and with the book that's coming, but just share a little bit about how that, in many ways, I mean, how so much of what you've learned about being that best man that you can be maybe got encapsulated and maybe even enhanced or further augmented in that journey.
Well, I discovered, I saw the best and worst in me, kind of in a very amplified version when you're on the trail. I guess it's really important to tell you a little bit about how it started. Is that in 2010, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and had a pretty vicious, rigorous treatment. I was cancer of the tongue, and I underwent 39 radiation treatments, 2 inpatient chemo stays, ended up with a feeding tube. And as I was detoxing from the treatment and the medication to get through that, I believe I was called to walk the Appalachian Trail. And long story short, I set a date 4 years out on March 19th, 2015, 5 years from the day I was diagnosed, to start the trail. And I went to my board of directors 2 years before and said, I'm thinking of doing this. I don't know if you want to start looking for a new executive director, talk about giving me some unpaid leave or whatever, or figure out a way for me to raise my salary, whatever. I just wanted to let them know. And they said, if I could put my face on recovery, go back to my life purpose, carrying the message of recovery, then they would continue my salary and would fully support my adventure. And I was like, just completely blown away. And my wife at the time was kind of humoring me all along this time. When I came back from the board meeting and told her what happened, she was like, oh, wow, this is really going to happen now. This could really happen. And I guess, when I think about starting on Springer Mountain, Georgia, getting dropped off there, one of the worst weather days, it was 40-something degrees, wind blowing sideways, left alone. I had a lot of people supporting me, talking about, and then it was just me and what was I going to do? And the only thing that came to me was continue. That was the word that was whispered in my head, continue. And that's actually the name of the working title of the book is #continue. And I started off from there, took it one day at a time, and marveled at how people kind of came in and out of my hike. I was able to walk with my 19-year-old daughter at the time and my 13-year-old son, at different points in the trail connect with them in a very powerful and profound way, but really rediscovered my gratitude for life, the importance of being a little more contemplative and not rush into decisions as quickly as I had been. And I think then what really boiled down to when I came back was intentional living. So Richard Rohr wrote a book, and I think I got it right. It's Falling Forward. Is it the name of it? But he talks about building a container the first half of your life, and then something happens, if you're lucky, and you ask the question, is there more to life than this? And what do I fill my container with? And I built a pretty good container, beautiful family, a house, cars, nice job, meaningful work, all of that, good connections. But what do I fill that container with? And now that's really where I'm starting to become more intentional. And that's from the trip. So my first intention is to finish this book and then see what happens. My second is to really expand CCAR's training services so we can share our experience, strength, and hope of the things we've learned over the last 17 years with new organizations. So I could tell you a lot of stories about the trail and a lot of amazing, almost miraculous events. And I do get a chance to talk about those a lot, but I think we don't have the time. Like you said, it could take a couple hours at least.
Well, if I'm not sure what's going to come of this project for me. I'm doing this every day for Recovery Month, but I'm enjoying it. And so if I'm still doing something like this, I sure hope you'll come on to whatever I'm doing to talk about the book and to get into that more, because irrespective of whether that happens, I'm looking forward to reading the book.
No, well, you got it. I mean, I think about September 23rd last year, I finished the trail. It was a journey of 2,189 miles. I calculated that on my iPhone was tracking my steps. I didn't know. So the other day I added it up. It was 5,500,000 steps. I went through 6 pairs of boots, lost a lot of weight, was incredibly fit. But never mind all that taxing. It was like my spring unwound, and I came back perfectly at peace. Last year or so since I've been back, I could feel that spring starting to crank up again, and have learned ways to release it some more, and I'm taking better care of myself.
That's awesome. Well, Phil, it's been wonderful to see you. I really appreciate you being a part of this, and I always ask my guests to have the last word, so take us home.
The last word. I think you can get through anything one day at a time.
Beautiful.